I thought it was in Twitter. Thank you. Sorry. My fault. Now you can hear me better? I hope so. Thank you. So basically, this is the idea of open source coming to your company. But this is an unbound process in some companies that basically either they are contributing to open source projects at some point, or they are even releasing their own software projects, open source projects. That's, for example, the case of Uber, that you can think that, okay, what's the relationship between Uber and open source? They are releasing, like, if I remember well, in the last 3 years, like 2 projects per month, new open source projects per month. So that's a lot of activity. And in the middle of all of this ecosystem is where open source program offices are created in companies, in some companies, to start managing all these inbound, outbound things happening there. My way to see this is basically open source program offices people are the rangers in the organization taking care of the ecosystem. Because basically, your company is participating on an ecosystem that you depend on, either because you are consuming things from there, or either you are contributing and releasing things to that ecosystem. So basically, how you healthy behave with the ecosystem is going to impact on the survival of your company, your business, in several ways. So I will talk about this right now. So basically, when we're talking about what are the tasks typically achieved by open source program offices, well, some people call them pain points because it's like, you will see that there's a lot of things to do. But firstly, when they are consuming open source software, they are dealing with things related with licenses compliance. Okay, I'm getting things from here and there. If nobody is taking care, probably you are missing things with GPL, MIT, and uncompatible license, and probably you will have some issues. And we know what legal issues means to some companies. Basically, no, we are not going to use that. So basically, you need someone with legal mindset on board with that. But also, it's related, okay, if I am using an open source project, I need to know what's the health of the project at some level. Is there any activity? If I found some issue here where I am submitting it, is it going to be solved? No. And let's go for security flaws. If nobody's taking care of the security of the code you are putting into your organization, well, maybe it can be funny at the beginning, but at the end could be very severe problems there. And of course, for many companies, it's also a way to attract talent. Basically, you go there and you see, oh, this open source project is so cool, it's very interesting for us. Why not hiring the people that is in that community? Because if it's key for us, they want to have this knowledge in our company. So it's also a way to do that. So basically, only with consuming software, you already see that there are people that need to have some legal knowledge, things related with what's the health on open source, security analysis, and human resources or community management things. So that's very different mindset. Let's go for the next thing, contributing to open source. If your company is contributing to open source, these rangers need to be aware, okay, is my company leading the projects that he's participating? Because we have cases of companies, okay, I am a hardware company, but I am participating in this software project because I need this software to be ready when my hardware release gets to the market, because I want to be sure that it's working perfectly. I need to be the leader. So basically, it's not going the first day and, oh, I'm going to be my contributions, and they are going to certify the first day. How I become a leader? And then, of course, the footprint of the company in the open source project it's participating. I need to be aware, okay, what's the impact of myself as a company when I am participating in open source projects? Of course, if someone in the company is doing some code externally, probably you need to deal with IP compliance and things like that. Okay, don't reveal secrets and things that are IP protected in the company and things like that. And of course, in this case, in many companies, has been rated with, okay, we want people to be happy, and we have discovered there are studies that people contributing to open source projects are a lot of committed to the things they are doing. So it's about sometimes to talent retention, that allowing people to contribute to open source will make them happy in the company at some point. So again, new mindsets and still also human resources and things like that. And then releasing and maintaining open source. It's not only about contributing, but also I am releasing our own projects. Let's see things like, okay, when I am releasing an open source project, do I get any external contribution to the project, or is just me doing my stuff? Because if that's the case, probably what's the reason to do that as an open source? I've been talking with open source program managers, and usually the managers above them ask them is, what's the value of doing open source for us? Again, I'm not talking about Red Hat or companies like that, but if you are an Uber company, or companies like that, okay, my business is not doing open source. Why are doing this? What's the impact? Where are the benefits we're getting from this? And again, not only engaging people, but grow the company, grow the community on those projects. Again, things related with IP compliance, things related with leadership at footprint in these cases. And again, when I'm releasing these projects in some communities or in some companies, it's very related with not only, this is our technology, please contribute back to it. It's about, okay, let's see which people are coming, what people are coming. Let's see how talented they are, because probably it's a way to hire us for the company. That could be also risky. We know companies that started and still an open source project. And one of the issues they have failed is they have hired all the community. So nobody else has taken that succession in the sense, okay, who is the next one in my community? So there is no more community and the level to enter in the community, the barrier to enter, is so high now that the technology has grown a lot. So again, some issues you need to manage. So basically, if you look at the right side of the screen, those are a lot of things to manage, a lot of very different mindsets. And when I ask it to people that, okay, do you have an open source program office in your company? Like your case here that you mentioned before. How many people are working in that open source program office? How many people is dealing with all these things? And when I've been talking with some experts, one of the numbers they usually say is, well, usually these things are about one person by each 1,000 developers in my company. So imagine all the possibilities related with 1,000 of developers using, contributing, releasing open source, and one person managing all of that. It's a big task to achieve here. But the thing I want to say is these things are key for the company at some point. And basically, we are trying not to get people crazy about this job. So that's one of the issues here. So how to manage an open source program office? How I can get some help? Whereas there are communities already, communities of practice or learning or practitioners of people discussing about all this stuff. What I would like to mention, at least two that I know well, probably there are more. One is the To-Do group from the Linux Foundation. Well, both of those are from the Linux Foundation projects, but one is the To-Do group. And actually, the To-Do group is the one that is writing guides about how to manage open source program offices, use cases. There are people from Bloomberg, Amazon, Google open source program offices already there. It's a very active project with a lot of guides, some tools they are developing. So it's for community, health, analytics, for open source software. And at some point, we wanted to add also inner source, but that's a different talk. But the idea is, okay, when we are talking about open source development and health, how you measure that? And there were some initiatives here and there, and the idea is, okay, why not put all together that knowledge into a single brand, and let's start discussing about what are the metrics that matter. And I remember one of the first meetings, okay, what's the key metric we need to say to the people? And we, 25% in the people in the room, and we ended saying like 24 different key metrics. So that means so let's back to this inbound, outbound strategies and how to face all these things. And usually, what I found is people start with questions. I have a lot of questions. Like, from the inbound point of view is, which projects are we using in our organization? How do you know that? And when we are talking again about 1,000 developers taking the decision, okay, I'm going to add these cool things that I found in GitHub, because I go to GitHub or GitLab, I look for some specific projects, and then, oh, this is something that is going to save my time. I'm going to add to my own project. Okay, who's taking care of that? There are already some solutions there. I know SW360 that allows you to maintain a list of all your dependencies, projects, and a description of the ecosystem. But then the question is, okay, what's the health of those projects? How are these projects, they are active or not? Because I go to their repository and start looking, okay, what's typical? I don't know, what do you do? And I would like you to know. only has one release per year, and is one of the most used open source projects in the world. And it's not that active. So again, healthy could mean very different things. So then there are people looking at things like, okay, how they are dealing with issues, how many issues they have open. So things start to get complicated because you start looking at the, I would say, low-hanging fruits related with metrics and all this stuff. And again, once we have identified these kind of things, the next question is, okay, who are the key people in this project? Because if I have an issue and I have to talk with someone, who should I talk with? With other people that are solving the issues? Is a community? Is a company? Is nobody? Who is dealing with all of that? That's, I would say, that are the typical questions. I don't know if you have any specific questions when you are dealing with this inbound thing. Anything you have in mind? Things that you check before? Licenses. Sorry? Licenses, okay, good point. Fair enough, yeah. Thank you. I will add that later to the slides to make it more complete. From that outbound point of view, when I am releasing or contributing, well, questions could be similar. Like, okay, which projects are we contributing as an organization? And this has been an interesting exercise for some big companies, like, okay, let's look at where your people is contributing. And there are very different reasons to start guessing that. For example, things like, okay, let's see if my people is contributing to certain projects, maybe I should take care of those projects too, because at some point probably they are important for us. Or things that have happened in some companies is if someone starts to contribute to some projects, maybe someone is looking for a promotion or probably a future job. And I can tell you some use cases about that. And it's very interesting. Or people that, okay, I'm too open that I would like this platform to be also used in other projects. So basically I'm contributing that to those projects. Things like that. Or things related with, okay, which projects are we releasing? If nobody's taking care of that, probably they are going to face issues with IP compliance and stuff like that. Or, okay, let's release an open source project that is key for us. So we are working on that, and then someone in the community send a patch or a merge request or something like that, and nobody take care of that. Because, okay, it's not in our roadmap. No problem, so ignore that. We have released from, I think it was with OpenStack. We did an analysis for them, that's something we called the anti-community. I mean, how many people do a contribution and never come back? I mean, they send up issue or merge requests or things like that. For reasons that you don't know, that could be personal, that could be who answered the issue, or because you ignored that completely, they never ask again or submit another issue or fix whatever it is. And we discovered some communities with, for example, 4,400 people, in the anti-community metric. So that means, imagine saying someone, oh, you have 400 people willing to contribute, and ignore them. Okay, if you have 3,000 people coming, probably you don't care. But okay, it's a number to take into account at some point. And again, from people that are already contributing, who are the key contributors? Especially when you are releasing an open source project, it's not about, okay, we have released, I don't know, our own project, Grimoire Lab, for example, in the case of our company, and we have like, I don't know, 20, 30 contributors. Oh, amazing, it's a nice project. Okay, 25% of them are our own employees, so probably there are not that many contributors, only 5. But from those 5, who are the ones that are only engaged and really engaged with the project? How you can look at that? And usually I use this quote from William Edwards Deming. I don't know if you know them, but he's known for many things related with project management and stuff like that, but I love this quote that without data, you are just a person with an opinion. I am not saying that opinions are bad, but once you have opinions based on data, well, things are going to be interesting to discuss because you have facts to discuss on top of that. So basically, okay, let's start, for example, when people are talking about open source software health, how we can define health. Well, I've mentioned before Chaos. Chaos has released on January this year the second release of metrics to define things related with health. Basically, Chaos, as I said before, is open source projects. They have two steering committees, one related with software, I mean tools to measure things in open source, and one steering committee related with what we call metrics, I mean definition of metrics, so very discussion-oriented thing, people talking in mailing lists, weekly calls, so okay, let's talk about different metrics. It's divided in 5 working groups. The common metrics working group focus on metrics that are related with any of the other working groups I'm going to talk about. Diversity and inclusion working groups, so basically metrics about diversity, people coming to the project, stuff like that. Evolution working group that used to be called growth, maturity, and decline, because the idea of the project has a life cycle like that. Now we call it evolution, because they can live forever, we expect, at some point. Also the risk working group that is related, okay, when you are wanted to use a project, there are some metrics related with the risk of using that project, how to measure that. Again, there's a lot of discussion there. And the value working group, because one of the things that people want to know, okay, what's the value of this project? How I can measure somehow the value. And as you see, well, I don't know if you can see them, but the website is chaos.com/metrics. You can go for details. There are details about the definition of the metric, how you can measure that with the existing tools in the community, all this stuff. And of course, also channels to discuss and things like that. And to make things a little bit easier, last month in Bitergia, the company I work for, we released another open source project to measure things related with chaos and metrics in general that is called Cauldron. Everything in our company has weird names about magic. Basically, if you go to Cauldron.io, you are going to be able to build a dashboard of metrics and stuff like that. There are some already predefined, as you see there. So, for example, on the right-hand side, you can see half of all the chaos metrics defined already implemented in the dashboard. So basically, you can see things related, okay, very simple things. Like, for example, I will probably send you, it's better what it is, Cauldron, and then I will show you, full screen thing that is going to be better. But basically, Cauldron is a 100% free open source software. Everything we do is free open source software. So we are not selling anything here. It's just, if you want to play with it, it's free. It's built on already 3 key open source projects for us. One is Grimoire Lab, that is the tool set that is part of Chaos that we donate to Chaos in 2017, when the Chaos community was announced and launched. We donate that to the community. It's built on OpenDistro for Elasticsearch. If you don't know, it's basically a 100% free open source software implementation of Elasticsearch and another tools that usually you need to use, things related with security, alerting, and all stuff that I will show you later. And Diango, we love Python, so we love Diango, and it has helped us a lot. And it's still alpha. It has been announced in FOSDEN, and we have been working on it for probably 3-4 months. So we are small, but it's free open source software, so we welcome everyone to join the community. And basically, the first step is you go to the website. I think I have time to run a quick demo. Let me check. And what would be a presentation without a demo that can break and nothing will work? So basically, this is the website I said, Cauldron.io. You can go to analyze a project. You will create a blank or white, empty environment. So basically, by now, it's supporting GitHub information, Git information, GitLab information, and Meetup. The idea is to add, I think it's set already there, but from during this year to add that data sources related probably with Discord, probably with Slack, or mailing lists, or groups.io. I mean, also, because our idea is that software development is not only writing code. It's related with people discussing, people contributing in very several ways that I will probably talk later. And how it runs, okay, you can go here. Okay, our projects, most of our projects are in GitLab because we love the GitLab. Thank you very much to the GitLab people for it. And you go here and, for example, we hosted it on Cauldron.io. So it's an organization. I don't know, for example, if you know the difference between GitHub and GitLab. In GitHub, you have owner and user and then the repositories. And in GitLab, you can have a very good and detailed level of structure. So basically, you can have a root environment, and then different groups, and then in each group you can have repositories. So we support that. So basically, you click here, you go to the GitLab API, and everything works. There it is. It's start to run. So basically, it goes to each of the repositories it has found and start to gathering data. When you are running this on GitLab, this is for GitLab.com. The idea is also to measure things related with Git. You can see here in advance. You click here. We are tracking information about Git commits, repositories, and also things related with issues and merge requests. So basically, you are going to have all that information at some point. From there, basically, you have two things. One here is what we call the public dashboard. So basically, it's a link you can share with anyone in the community. Okay, this is how this project looks like. I mean, with the community, with anyone. And you have your workspace where you can also build your own dashboards. That the one I have shown you before, I think I have one example here. This is one analysis I ran for .NET recently. Basically, is this chaos metrics dashboard, and you can see things like, for example, this thing. I don't know how many repositories .NET has, but I think it's around hundreds. So we aggregate all that information, and you can see for the last, let me check how, I think this is the last 5 years. One sec. So I can exit for, yes, last 6 years. You see, this is Kibana. And it's a standard Kibana. Back to full screen to make it easier to read. But you see a behavior here, where basically you see that most of the contributions are happening during weekly days, working weekly days, during the work time. My guess, this is a corporate-driven project, because most of the work is being done during working hours. I have analyzed some really open source projects about gaming, for example, like you see people working on Saturdays, Sundays, Fridays early morning, Fridays late, things like that. Well, in this project, there are some people that has done a lot of contributions around noon on Saturday and Sunday. So probably, I don't know, big release and stuff like that. But there are metrics related, for example, how long does it take to attend the first response on an issue? Not only how long does it take to get the issue closed, but how long, in average, takes for all these repositories, but you can filter by repository, by organization, by whatever. You can also get information about, okay, things like when the issue has been submitted or the pull request has submitted, how long does it take until one person that is not the submitter has answered anything to this thing? That I think is something that not many tools out there provides, but also things related with, this is related with the email domain used by the contributors. We are going to anonymize all the data here. So basically, no emails stored, but at least the email domain is going to be there. So you can do some basic analysis about where people are coming from, especially if they are using their corporate address, like Microsoft.com, for example. .NET is clearly Microsoft.com project at some point. And again, for example, if you want to filter for Git information, oh, I think it writes an error here. There are too many data. Okay. And this is when people things work in a demo. Session expired, okay. That explains everything. No problem. I know how to fix that. I can go to one of my many projects. And where is .NET? I think it's here. Right? Yeah, it is. Yeah, I can go to my workspace. Yeah, the session, if you don't touch it all the day in the booth, has this thing. So where are, I need to change to my, this is also a very interesting thing. You have two user access. One is the global one that has all the public information, and the other one is the private one. So the private one is the one where I can create all the things. We are working on improving the user experience that you click on workspace, you go related to your private workspace. And then in the dashboards list is going to be this. Okay, I have to check twice. Here you go. For the last 15 minutes, probably it's going to be empty. Makes sense. Nothing happens in the last 15 minutes. Let's check for the last year to make it fast, I hope. Yes, it is. Here it comes. So use here Microsoft, Git data in Microsoft, and some places are gonna appear empty, but some are gonna be filled, and you see how Microsoft people is working on this project. In all the repositories, again, you can apply different filters here, like repository name and stuff like that, or other things that I'm gonna exclude, disable again this filter, for example, just click in there. Another thing that we are working on is showcasing this information down here. That is, in Chaos, they are talking about contributors, but we want to go one step further, and basically is analyzing who are the maintainers, who are the people writing the code, I mean, doing Git commits, who are the people contributing, and by contributing, I mean people that is solving issues, answering questions, answering questions, or submitting pull requests or merge requests. That's the idea. Those people are contributing. They are the core maintainers, but they are sending some valuable information. And then we have the users. And when many people talk about, okay, I want to know how many people is downloading the thing, how many builds are done on top of that, I usually say, okay, that's interesting. But when we are talking about software development, open source development, we are talking about people. So it's probably better metric from my point of view, and I can be completely wrong, to focus on, give me the trends about the people. How many people is asking questions or submitting issues? That is another way to ask those questions in the systems I have. Because those people are people that has taken the time to look at my thing and ask a question. And I will come back to that concept later. But that people is a way to measure this thing. And then I have observers. Since we support Meetup, and we are planning to add probably more data sources later, but the idea of, okay, when I am doing meetings, how many people is attending to these meetings? Because they are the ones that are close to the project at some point. I don't know, you know this orbital model that some people is defining about, you have the observers, how is the gravity of the project? Well, we call it the onion model. So basically you have the observers, then you have the users, then you have the contributors, and then on the core of that, you have the maintainers. And maybe people are not changing layer, but at some point, and I think it was one of the questions in previous talk about from Ray from GitLab, is are anyone going all the way down to become a maintainer? Because some people see that not as a business funnel or marketing funnel, but a contributor funnel. How you can engage people from just being interested in an open source project and becoming a maintainer. It's a long path. Could take almost forever for some projects, but it's an interesting thing. So that's Cauldron. So I think I went too much on this, sorry. So the good thing is all these slides are going to be fast because it was my backup to see if there's nothing running. So here we go. So when we are talking about metrics and measuring, and how many of you here are some technical person? I'm not that technical. I am the CEO of the company, so I'm not the most technical person for sure. But when I'm talking with technical people about, okay, we are talking about metrics, measuring, data, oh, come on, I can do that. I can go to the GitLab API. I can go to the GitHub API and gather data. Okay. And then you have also to measure things in Jira, and then you have also to measure things in the mailing list. And oh, no problem. I have very good skills on this. And I remember one of our first customers said to me, do you know what? I have spent 80% of my time on things I'm not paid for. I need to manage my projects, not to gather data and deal with things like if the API is broken, if something has changed, how I merge the identity of the people across the different data sources, how I can enrich information with where these people are coming from, which companies they're coming from, things like that. So basically, if someone has written code for this, I will use that. That's one thing. But for me, the most important thing is to understand that metrics don't mean anything without a strategy. And the strategy we have worked with companies, with organizations, we have been doing this for 15 years, analyzing open source projects and the evolution, is, okay, everybody in a community is doing this for a reason. I mean, when I'm talking about a community, I'm talking about organizations, I mean foundations, I'm talking about companies, and I'm talking about individuals. And each one of them have very different goals when they are coming to a community and contributing to a community. And those are the things you need to start with. Okay, what are your goals as a company or as a manager for doing this stuff? I mean, for whatever you are doing, what are the goals? Then turn those goals into questions about, okay, I am doing this because I want to lead the market. I want to be the leader on this in the market. Okay, how many countries are coming to your project? How many users are asking from different areas? Those are questions that the key point is, can they be answered with a number? Because then you can see the evolution to your goals. I can check how is it going. And that's what we do with the plan, do, check, add. Again, plan, do, check, add from William Deming, as I mentioned before, has been famous for that. This idea, okay, let's plan how to achieve those goals, then put them into action, and then check, I am doing well. If not, let's replan the thing and start doing that cycle from time to time. So, for example, these are some charts from some users, so I'm going to quickly go through some use cases we have found. This is for Uber, and the case was, okay, I want to know who are my core maintainers in the projects I am releasing, because they were releasing a lot of open source projects, and they wanted to know not only, okay, I want to know how many people is coming, but I want to know who is the core maintainer. And how do we define the core maintainer? Well, we have the onion model for users and stuff, and contributors and maintainers, but we have also the onion model that we call the core, casual, and regular contributors. And by core, we mean the people that has done, this is by quarter, 80% of the contributions. Then you discover that 80% of the contributions are doing mostly around 20% of the people, the Pareto ratio that a lot of people know. Then we have the regular contributors. I mean, the people that do 15% of the contributions. And then we have the casual contributors, the one that do 5% of the contribution. So basically, it's not the pony factor. It's a little bit more divided, more accurate in that sense. With the idea you can see, first of all, what's the trend? I am engaging more core contributors. So basically, this is the red line, the red bar, sorry. I think what's the red? No, it's the blue one here. And also, you can see, since in some cases, for some companies, we also have the name of the people, you can see if people go from one bucket to the another. So at some point, you can take decision based on, oh, this core maintainer has been a core maintainer for 3 quarters, and now it's not anymore, and it's a casual one. What has happened? Because basically, it has been doing 80% of the thing, and then it's to 5% of the thing. Has he changed of job? Has she moved to another company? Is not interesting anymore? Has been any problem in the community? As a manager, probably as a community manager, probably you can take an action. Okay, let's send an email, things like that. Those are easy examples to understand. Another quick, funny example that Uber people told me that was interesting is where are things happening? And for some APIs, you have information about the geolocation. For other data sources, for example, in Git, you don't have that information, but you have the time zone. At some point in the commit, is stored, this has been done on from this time zone. Okay, there are people using time zone 0. I don't know. We love to live in the middle of the Atlantic. I don't know why. I am from the north shore of Spain. I promise you Atlantic can be very cold. But you see, there was a pattern in GitHub, in Uber, in their GitHub repositories, that most of the activity seems to be happening, you know where? San Francisco area. And they wanted to be a goal-wide spread company, Atlantic talent all around the world. They were opening offices in Bulgaria, I think, in East Europe, China, and stuff like that. And they discovered that people were not that engaged to send the CVs and stuff like that. What could be happen? And they decided to change strategy. They were running a lot of development meetups and stuff and things like that in the States, in San Francisco area. And they decided, okay, let's do our open source conference in Bulgaria. Because let's make clear to the world that we are not a San Francisco company. We are a worldwide company. And they start to receive more emails, more CVs, more resumes. So it seems that the strategy works. So this, again, is not only about measuring how many commits I have in my project. Well, this is another advanced area I think you cannot read very well, but the idea of, okay, as I said before, where else are my people contributing? And in the case of Uber, for example, they discovered that there were people participating in Facebook and Microsoft open source projects. And there were two things here. First, they discovered, okay, then is this important for you as a manager? You are the ones that have this knowledge about what's going in my company in the high level. So us as analyzers, we don't know. If we can tell you this is happening, you can look at the data, but we don't know why. And we sit down and it was like, I don't know if it's people willing to move to another company, and then they told me, no, we have it could be. Could we know which repository is this happening? Yes, we can know that, because we have a very successful project we have released where basically it's a native React thing to build applications based on TypeScript. And I said React and TypeScript. React mostly from Facebook, and TypeScript mostly from Microsoft. So basically, Uber was making contributions on those projects to ensure that their project works as they want. Imagine not doing that in an open source way. I mean, imagine doing that as a company, knocking on the other people's company, oh, you know that? I need your technology to be changed, and we need to send an agreement, an NDA, and all this stuff. No, it has been done behind the curtains in an open source way. So they have a very nice story to tell, oh, we are collaborating with these people. Thank you very much, Microsoft and Facebook, to accept my contributions and make things better for us, for our daily lives. This is a very good example of that. And again, there's another thing that we discover is basically, it's not anymore, this is my community. This is the single community I need to look at. Then you discover that communities are related somehow in many ways. And we have some talks out there about that. But again, this is an example about dealing with contributions, how long does it take. Again, days to merge things and stuff like that. And I would like to end the conversation to focus on another point of view. I've been talking about, okay, this is how from the corporate you can measure things and look at that. But the other thing is this current discussion about consumers and maintainers. I mean, people taking things for free, and they are winning millions and not sharing with me, and what's happening here, and people getting burned out, and a lot of things. This is unbalanced at some point. I mean, there are, and you know that, there are many users for low number of maintainers. And it's because open source is as this. It's basically you are giving things to the world, and you are giving that for free. If you want to avoid anyone to use that, probably don't call that free open source software. So let's discuss again about licensing and stuff like that. We can discuss with OCI a lot. But from my point of view, that's also interesting to reach out that consuming open source without taking care, like going there, oh, this is for free for me to use, it could be fun, but it could be very dangerous if you don't take the needs rated. And I found that one of the ways that helps organizations and open source projects a lot is basically try to move from users, or specifically from consumers, but users, as I said before, people submitting issues, asking questions, to contributors. You probably already have this knowledge at home that, okay, I can answer, after using a product for a while, I can solve some of the issues. Go up to the GitHub issue, check the easy ones, answer them, help the project somehow. This is one way to help. And I'm going to show you, there was an interview to Josh Simon, from Salesforce, Open Source Front Office, talking about, okay, if you don't go and never go to a community, and then, I don't know, in a moment on time, a company like Salesforce go there and say, oh, I have an issue with this project, I need to be solved. You are going to probably ignore, or, well, you're going to get an answer that probably is not very polite. Probably, I know though. Not all the projects are similar, but it's the risk you are facing. If you have been helping on issues, questions, because you already have that knowledge, so it's not that big effort. Probably when you are coming with an issue, someone's going to say, oh, thank you very much for your contribution, probably I'm going to take time to look at what's happening here. And that helps a lot. So this is one way. And the other, of course, there are many people talking about money. Because sustainability also means, okay, I need to be living on this, and there are a lot of business models. Remember, I am in the mood of open source is not a business model, but you can build a lot of business models related with open source. So that's important to understand. But there are multiple options. I want to name a few of them. One are related with already existing business. I don't know if you know about Tideleaf, Open Collective. They are selling services to companies to help the maintainers, or you can put money there and it's then spread across the maintainers if they have any need. That's one way. You have foundations, and there are tons of foundations. And there are foundations quite big and quite well-funded, but there are others that they are not that well-funded, but they are supporting a lot of projects, like the Software Freedom Conservancy. They have a booth here in the Scale, so stop by, say hello. Genome Foundation is already there, so say hello, thanks them for all the well things they're doing. Some tip from time to time doesn't hurt anyone. And they have the community bridge from Linux Foundation that can be used to drive some money to projects also there. So again, this is a way to support and help maintainers. Or you can you can start your own open source software funding initiative. Indeed has one. So basically the idea is if you are an employee and you are contributing to open source projects, they are going to donate money to these projects, and they have budget allocated for that. Salesforce has announced, I think, Josh announced this, I think, 1 or 2 weeks ago in Twitter. So basically Salesforce has now one also. And last but not least, well, people think that GitHub Sports is a good idea. Patron could be also an idea. I see that as my personal opinion as a Git development. So basically, it's like getting tips in a jar for developers. My impression, that is not sustainable on time for a developer to make a living. But okay, it's another way, so I have to list it there to be as complete as possible. And last but not least, as I said before, there are many ways to build a business on top of open source or related with open source projects. And there are small, even individual organizations there making this for a living. So first of all, I would like people to avoid the not invented here syndrome that I've seen in many companies. Like I said before, when you're talking to people about, oh, we are doing this, getting data, and I can do that. I am Google. I am more than experienced with that. I don't need to hire you. But do you know all the things you need to do after that? Okay. Why not get and hire those people? Hire that companies, because, again, it's a way for them to make a living and live on these things. So some final remarks. I would like to share with you just a briefing, because we are 46 minutes of talk, and I would like to know your opinions also on that. But of course, first of all, managing the relationship with open source software ecosystems requires some knowledge about very different topics. And that's complicated for one person, so imagine one person per each 1,000 developers, all the things you need to manage. So I think the second thing is to think about, okay, when you are thinking about managing this thing, open source software is not assets and resources. I mean, it's not something that you can throw away and manage like, this is a thing. No, there are people under that. And there are people you need to deal with. You need to have some soft skills to treat all of this. So I think that's important. And last but not least, of course, there are open source tools and organizations to help you understand all of this. So I think you are not alone. It's not that risky. I mean, it's diverse knowledge, but there are some good documentation there. I, again, recommend you to go to the group and check all the guides that are there. I'm sure that if you see something missing, you can open an issue and start participating in that community. And of course, from my point of view, I think one of the key points, don't ignore your open source software ecosystem. If you think as an ecosystem, as a human living or living being in the middle of the forest and depending on that ecosystem, the sustainability even for that living, that being depends on the ecosystem. So your sustainability and growth as a company, as individuals also could depend on that. So don't ignore your open source like, okay, I'm taking this code, I don't mind what's going behind that code, and you start using it. There are probably people behind that. Very interesting stories. There's a podcast I usually heard that is Underdogs, and they are doing like a monthly interview. They have been doing a monthly interview to open source companies, managers interviews, so they are telling the story of how they started from zero to, okay, I have a company, I'm doing this on open source. And it's so fun to read that. But they didn't interview Sid from GitLab, and it was very interesting. For example, how they determine the first client, how I'll give a price. How am I going to get money from someone that asks me, I want to pay for this? And it's like, okay, I don't know. I'm doing this because I love this project. So let's give, I don't know, $15,000? Yes, okay, that was too low. Next time I need to double things. So all the story, things like that, I think they are very remarkable. So again, then you put, so it's not just that nice code I'm using, it's all the storyline behind that. So go for it. That was my last slide. Well, I have a slide about the company, but I have mentioned it before. You have all the information to contact me there. That was my last thing. I don't know. What do you think? Questions, comments are more than welcome. Anything to add? Probably I speak too fast, sorry. I always want to say a lot of things. Yes?
If you use a piece of open source software and you want to get more involved in that community, what is a good way to kick that off? Or sort of say, like, hey, I've been using this for a while, but I'd like to be more involved.
So the question, I need to repeat it, just to check that I have understood, is basically if you have been using for a while an open source project and you want to, okay, I want to become more involved, where to start and say, I'm not saying, okay, let's start by, sorry, I've been using this for a while, I have ignoring you, I love the things you are doing. I think it's fair to start, okay, I'm using this, where are the communication channels? Like, probably they are using some kind of mailing list, even the issues system. Even in the issues, if you find, on the other way around, that we are recommending things like, okay, let's start labeling your issues with easy to fix, first issue, things like that. Go there, comment something, or even things I have seen like, okay, this issue I have also found it, and I don't know how to fix it. And then you write, oh, I've been using this software, and this issue is also something I've seen, how I can help. Actually, it's probably this thing related with open source is not only helping you to improve your, people call that hard skills and soft skills. Your hard skills are okay, technical things, but also soft skills are okay. How to say please and hello and thank you. I think those are the magic words. I think there is also a song about this, are magic words. They can open doors and things like that. So thank you, how I can help. Again, thank you very much, and please let me know how I can help you on this. That's the things I recommend that. And again, you can face a lot of very different maintainers' moods. But also, it's something I've seen, people that has changed projects, not only because the technology, but the community behaved under that community. Like, okay, I would like to have, oh, you don't have any clue, LTFM or whatever. And I'm like, okay, thank you very much. Probably I'm going to check an alternative, because the other thing about ecosystems is there are a lot of alternatives to live with. And that's the good thing. Those are, from my point, is personal experience that I have faced. And you're welcome.
Are you talking about open source in general, or those?
Yeah, in general.
Yeah.
Also, sometimes communities have specific issues that are newcomer friendly. So sometimes labels or something like that will indicate ones where it's great to start. And then they sometimes also have chat channels specifically for newcomers or something like that. So depending on the organization, a lot of projects are trying to attract newcomers. So it's, they're really trying to be mindful of that.
Yeah, using the chats and first coming issues, I think is a good idea. Thank you very much, Ursula, for that. And I said that my first scenarios has been always going to this IRC and that old, or Slack or Jitter or whatever they are using, and say, hello, thank you very much for all of this, and I'm here to learn. That's it. Be humble and go there. Comments? More questions? You have.
I'm interested in getting involved in both to-do groups and also chaos projects. For to-do groups, do you have to have an, earlier I thought you were saying, are you part of open source? I wasn't sure if you meant open source offices.
Yep.
Don't have an open source office.
You don't need to have an open source office. And the thing with to-do group that it depends on your organization, but basically the to-do group has this open Slack channel, so you are more than welcome to participate there. to participate in certain areas of the to-do group, you need to be a Linux Foundation member, and then you need to apply all the process they have for CLA and stuff like that. In the Chaos community, for example, you don't need to be a Chaos member, neither a Linux Foundation member. It's basically go there and participate. There are a lot of universities, students, people like that that has been studying this thing for a while. So I would prefer to the group to be more open in that sense, but it's how it works. It's their decision, and that's it.
I have a question.
Yep.
I know you have, worked with lots of different open source communities. What have you seen as like some of the most successful tactics on getting people to move through the contributor funnel? Like from,
Yeah.
we talked about this in Ray's session, moving from creating issues to, solving issues.
Yeah.
Like, have you seen any kind of practical, steps that work across communities?
Yeah.
Or is it more nuanced because, I know communities vary so much. It could be,
Yeah.
there can be kind of custom solutions.
Yeah, but good question. Thank you, John. Basically, the question is, when we are talking about users, contributors, maintainers, how we can, if there is any mean that has been seen in communities to facilitate or to ease that path, at least. From my point of view, that's like a new talk being discussed for a while in small chats, but everybody, when I explain this thing, and it's not my idea, I think it's Mike from Homebrew project that has a very nice blog post about the contributors funnel. So I recommend that to read it. It's also saying there how some means to do that, some things that you can do. But things for sure that has helped is, not anybody opening an issue is a code writer. It's not a potential maintainer. But there are some that they are. For those, for anyone that you are welcoming, probably you are going to get them engaged to, okay, this community is nice, it's welcoming me. So if they get used to the product at some point or to the technology, if they are designers or code writers, then I can probably, if there is well documented, documentation can help a lot, work on this issue because I know how to fix that. Or I have some ideas. And they have treated me well when I was submitting issues. Probably they are going to treat me well if I am submitting a solution or discussing a solution somewhere. So again, it's like, let's acknowledge them. Thank you very much. And this is documentation if you want to know more, what kind of developer you are, and then you start making the path smooth to them. And the other thing that is important from my point of view in some communities is, depending on the project, is at some point maintainers need to start, this is again my speaking about about learn to delegate. Because it's this idea of, okay, I have started this open source project, so you feel this is my open source project, this is my thing. And some people don't want that to be touched by anyone, but them, because this is how. And of course, it's good to have people submitting patches and issues and all this stuff, but I will manage all of that. And I know companies driven by, there's a company I know that there's one person reviewing all the pull requests they are having, all one, from anyone, even the company workers. So basically, it's like, imagine the bottleneck, right? So now imagine the same behavior, like, this is my open source thing. And the mood you need to, I think it should be good to promote is, once you release something as an open source project, it's not yours anymore. It's community's thing. Of course, if you have an enterprise edition, if you have something under your way of working, probably it's going to be yours because it's your way. But how to make people fit into, okay, this is something we are doing with the community. The word from thank you the community to helping us to we are doing this together is when you start seeing people, then I can go there and fix whatever bug I found. This is one thing I have on my mind, but of course I think it's not that easy, but that's the challenge. Oh, thank you very much for the question. 2 more minutes we have. I don't know if you have anything on mind. If not, I'm going to free you for party or whatever you want to do in Pasadena today. So thank you very much.